begin Weather Extra with footage of the confirmed tornado that tore through parts of Bell County this past Wednesday. What you're seeing on your screen right now is the tornado traveling through Ripplewood Drive north of West Adams Avenue in the Temple area. Debris can be seen lofted high into the sky along with numerous power flashes. This neighborhood was one of the areas hit hardest and suffered the most damage. The National Weather Service rating this tornado an EF2 with maximum winds of 120 miles per hour. Fortunately, there were no fatalities reported and only minor injuries. However, the damage was extensive, as you see some of the destruction on your screen. After the storms passed, over 60,000 customers were left without power in Bell County. In a press conference this past Thursday, Temple officials estimated the storms impacted over 500 homes and businesses. 4 fire stations in the Temple area were among those that suffered damage. But thankfully, first responders were able to maintain operations and searched and cleared all structures with any kind of damage. We had additional confirmed tornadoes move through parts of central Texas on Thursday as well. An EF1 tornado tore through Bruceville Eddy, the area there Thursday evening. The National Weather Service said this twister had peak winds of 105 miles per hour. We were right there after the storm barreled through, and as you could see, the tornado caused the side of the home to completely be ripped off, and their outdoor garage or shed crumbled right down to the ground. This same exact storm that produced a tornado in McLennan County Thursday continued traveling east and would produce 2 more tornadoes in Falls and Robertson County. Justin Ellis was able to capture this video of the tornado as it tore through parts of Falls County near the Reagan area. Off in the distance, you see the tornado on the ground with debris also being picked up and swirled around in the air. Thanks for joining us. I'm First Alert meteorologist Jillian Johnson. What a busy and intense week of weather here in Central Texas. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of those who were impacted by these destructive storms last week. The National Weather Service traveled down to Central Texas to survey all of the damage. We toss it over now to First Alert meteorologist Sean Bell-Fury with more on their findings and a look back at the radar data as a tornado-warned storms barreled on through. Sean.
It has, of course, been an exceptionally dangerous week of weather across central Texas. Numerous amounts of storm reports Wednesday and Thursday, including tornadoes, wind gusts, hail, and flooding reports. But I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the radar data from the tornadoes that were reported on Wednesday in Bell County and in Thursday in Falls and Robertson County. First, the Bell County tornado, an EF2. This is the wind velocity. Now, even before the tornado formed, we were seeing some very strong wind gusts showing up. Over 100 miles per hour radar indicated, and this is right around the time that the first reported tornado was forming just to the east of Morgan's Point. You can actually see the very dark blues very close to the reds, which indicates, of course, rotating winds. That storm moving its way through northwestern Temple, producing that EF2 tornado. It also produced an EF1 tornado between Heidenheimer and Oscar, and you can see how close those reds and greens were to one another for that second tornado in Bell County on Wednesday. Now, as far as the Falls County storm went, this one was so isolated that we got a very good look at it from radar data. Watch as that hook starts to form, and you can actually see it spinning with all the rotating winds. First reported tornado near the Reagan area just to the northwest of Bremond during the 6:51 time period, and then another reported tornado in northern Robertson County too. But look at what happened when the storm started to fizzle out. All the hail that was suspended in that storm rained down on the city of Jewett. Reporting in the studio, Sean Bell-Fury, KWTX News 10.
I grabbed my dog and I grabbed my other dog, and all 3 of us go in the bathroom, and I shut the door, and as soon as I shut the door, I hear banging like someone broke in. The wind kept getting harder and harder, and I'm on the phone with him, and I'm telling him, I think I'm gonna die here.
You just heard from Hansie Howard, a business owner in Temple. She took shelter as a tornado tore through, hitting both her pet grooming studio and her home that is right next door. She is just one of many in Central Texas who have been personally impacted by these destructive storms. Here's more damage from the Temple area. Power lines snapped all over the place, numerous trees broken and flown in every direction, car windows blown out, and roofs torn off buildings. And check this out. James Wilson and his wife were parked near 3 West Ale House and Grill on West Adams Avenue in Temple the moment the tornado struck. Their Tesla was able to capture the exact moment the tornado hit off in they're off in the distance. You could see the twister approaching, and then you see all the debris flying around in the air, and also look at how dark everything got right after the storms passed. Thankfully, James and his wife Laura, along with others, took shelter in the walk-in freezer at the direction of the staff and stayed safe during the storm. Now, our KWTX Creative Service team sent out our drone this past Thursday to take a look at the devastating damage these storms left behind. First Alert Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor joins us now to break down some of the exclusive drone footage. Brady.
Yeah, Jillian, our KWTX Creative Services team took our drone out the day after the tornado hit, so on Thursday, to look at some of this damage, and you can see just the catastrophic damage that took place with this storm. A lot of roofs ripped off, and it shows just how crazy tornadoes can be, where one street has immense damage and other areas just small damage to the roof. But again, a large swath of 120-mile-per-hour winds tore through some of the western portions of the Temple area. This is more showing the residential damage, but as you go to Adams Avenue, several businesses damaged, and the damage stretched all the way into parts of downtown Temple where we had significant damage as well. But you can see as we get to the end here where just entire roofs ripped off, walls ripped off, bad shingle damage all across. And then when you add more storms that have been moving in and more rain, that makes it a lot worse. So again, roofers getting to work trying to get at least patchwork done on significant damage from that EF2 tornado that had up to 120-mile-per-hour winds.
Wow, did you hear those winds? These extreme winds were captured inside the Temple Mall Wednesday evening. Wind gusts of 100 to 120 miles per hour were reported in this storm. This wall stood no chance and came tumbling down as the powerful winds whipped debris all throughout the mall. Heavy rain also came in after the wall fell down. Just some insane footage coming out of the mall there in Temple. We spoke with business owners inside the mall who said the storms came so fast, but with quick reacting, they were able to get everyone inside the mall into shelter as the storms moved through. This storm did not only cause damage in the Temple area, but also caused widespread destructive damage across the city of Belton. You're taking a look at the scene from Belton Wednesday evening. Roads were impassable as debris from the tornado was scattered about. Power lines were toppled over, and many businesses along this road suffered significant damage. And here's the view of some of the heavy rain and destructive winds that these storms also brought to Central Texas on Wednesday. 80-mile-an-hour winds and hail to the size of ping pong balls were possible as these storms barreled through. This is a video of the storms in Temple. The rain was coming down so hard and the winds were so strong that the car was shaking and visibility was reduced. At one point on Wednesday, storms caused traffic on I-35 to come to a complete stop. There were other parts of our area that were hit with these powerful storms. A flash flooding also occurred due to these thunderstorms. Here's the view in Waco off of Franklin Avenue. Raging floodwaters covered the access road. So much rain fell at one time. Many streets across the Waco area had running currents moving through them. And the same storm system that produced tornadoes and damaging winds in Central Texas also produced tornadoes that ripped through the upper Midwest. Take a look at this. Now, this is the view of one of the tornadoes that was taking place there in Iowa and also into the Nebraska area this past Tuesday. This is the view of the twister that moved through Adams County, Iowa, toppling several wind turbines and leaving behind a trail of damage. Widespread damage was found behind these destructive storms in the state of Iowa, who got hit the hardest. The strongest tornado tore through the small community of Greenfield. The National Weather Service rating the twister as a powerful EF3. Roxana Sabiri was there in Iowa the day after the storms and has more on the damage left behind.
What a monster! Wow!
Massive tornadoes like this one barreled across Iowa, leaving Greenfield, a city of around 2,000 residents, devastated.
Before I went down the basement, I went all around my house and I prayed. I prayed for God to keep us safe.
Drone video over the city southwest of Des Moines captured what remained. Homes shredded to pieces, vehicles tossed onto lawns, mountains of debris, and trees ripped to their roots.
I know that, some of my friends were hurt and I couldn't get hold of them, but I was scared.
Iowa State Patrol has confirmed at least a dozen people were injured, and there were multiple deaths in the storm.
The Greenfield community has shown incredible unity during this challenging time. The Greenfield community has a long road ahead of them.
The damage here comes less than a month after the state was hit hard by tornadoes. In Adams County yesterday, storm chasers drove through flying debris from another twister. They then looked for survivors at this now leveled home.
Is there somebody here? Are you in shelter?
That same tornado snapped wind turbines and set them on fire. Before the extreme weather reached Iowa, neighboring Nebraska was slammed with torrential downpours, hail, and powerful winds. Widespread flooding swamped the Omaha area after up to 6 inches of rain fell, stranding cars and pushing them off the road. Tracy Dunn said there was so much flooding in her apartment that at one point she had to stand on top of her bed.
I don't have nothing. I lost everything. I got everything.
Back in Greenfield, the city has already begun cleaning up.
We will rebuild this community together. One thing about Greenfield is we're small, but we're mighty.
Straight ahead on Weather Extra, as summer quickly approaches, the threat for wildfires across the nation increases. But some states have already been fighting numerous blazes so far this year. On the other side of this break, we'll talk more about how many acres have already burned across the United States this year. Welcome back to Weather Extra. In North America, summer is wildfire season. Peak wildfire activity typically occurs throughout the months of June, July, and August when temperatures are hottest for our part of the globe. But due to the above normal warmth and ongoing drought across the nation, numerous wildfires are already scorching thousands of acres. Since January 1st of this year, nearly 15,000 fires have been recorded across the United States and have burned over 1.8 million acres. 14,000 of those fires have been started by humans, and according to the National Interagency Fire Center, Georgia, Missouri, California, and Texas are the states with the most human-caused wildfires. Last week alone, 5 different states had large and active wildfires with over 35,000 acres burning. The state of Arizona has been dealing with 2 very large fires this past week. Hundreds of firefighters have been battling a blaze burning inside the Tonto National Forest, which is northeast of Phoenix. Local officials are saying the exact start of the fire is unknown, but listed the cause as human. The National Interagency Fire Center states that 56,580 fires were reported throughout the year 2023, with nearly 2.7 million acres burned across the U.S. While that number of fires may seem high, it's actually the 3rd lowest amount of fires recorded in a given year since data was collected starting back in 1983. Also, those nearly 2.7 million acres burned last year was the least amount of land burned in a single calendar year. A total of 4,318 structures were reported destroyed by wildfires last year, with 3,000 of them being people's homes. Now, 2,300 of those residences were destroyed by those devastating wildfires that hit Maui back in August. Now, as far as records go, the most fires recorded in a single year was back in 2006, when over 96,000 fires were recorded in the U.S. The year with the most acres burned due to wildfires was back in 2020, when over 10 million acres were scorched. And wildfires are also raging through Western Canada. Thousands of residents have been forced to leave their homes as fires continue to scorch everything in their path. At one point last week, there were nearly 24 fires listed out of control by local authorities, and the fire danger remained at an extreme threat due to the unfavorable weather conditions. You also may recall last year, Canada experienced its worst fire season ever as nearly 6,600 blazes scorched nearly 46 million acres from coast to coast across the country. Now, just like we saw last year, smoke from those wildfires in Canada have been traveling into parts of the United States over the past few weeks, prompting air quality alerts across some northern American cities. Many local residents across the state of Minnesota are wondering if they're in for another smoky summer after last year's historic fire season in Canada. Barrett Leone has more.
A hazy city skyline.
Well, I just noticed that it's like a fog, it's cloudy.
And a quiet sidewalk strip.
It's a lot busy. It's like streams of people.
Tell part of the story up north. Traveling wildfire smoke is keeping the Twin Cities metro and southern Minnesota in a red air quality alert throughout Monday, meaning the air quality index is considered unhealthy for everyone.
I noticed it last night because I was like, I live right there, so I was like on my balcony and I was like, somebody's smoking. We don't have a smoker on this stack. And it's like, then I realized wildfire.
And so we're not getting that sort of slower start to the fire season we hope to see.
Quinn Barber, a fire science analyst with Canadian Forest Service, says it's too early to tell. Rain and wind change can drastically impact the outlook.
Last year was historically bad. It was record-breakingly, absolutely terribly bad. So to say it's better than last year is not saying much. We might have a pretty smoky year. We might have a lot of fire.
Barber says it's unlikely we'll get as many smoky days as we did last year. Minnesota saw 22 air quality alerts in the span of 52 days, a record-breaking year.
So last year was so bad. Didn't go outside.
It was hot. You couldn't go out with the heat. You couldn't go out with the air, and kind of stuck in the house.
But smoky summers might be here to stay.
The days of long summers with hot temperatures and no smoke, those may not be very common anymore, but take advantage of clear skies when we have them.
In Minneapolis, Barrett Leone, WCCO News.
With summer right around the corner, that also means the Atlantic hurricane season is quickly approaching. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration released their Atlantic hurricane season outlook this past Thursday. And coming up after the break, we'll hear what they're predicting for this year's season. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Memorial Day weekend marks the unofficial start to summer here in America, but it's definitely been feeling very summer-like outside in Central Texas for the holiday weekend. But what do we typically see on average for Memorial Day? Our normal high for the holiday is around 89 degrees, and the normal low is about 67. As far as records go, the hottest Memorial Day in Central Texas featured a temperature of 99 degrees. There have been 3 different years when we reached that record temperature. The first was back in 1912. Then again in 1928, and also back in 1949. But all of those records occurred on May 30th. Now, the coldest temperature recorded on Memorial Day also fell back on May 30th, got down to about 53 degrees back into the year of 1947. As we talked about before on Weather Extra, May is the wettest month of the year in Central Texas, and there has been 51 Memorial Days that have had rainfall in the area. The record wettest was back in 2015 when 1.7 inches of rain fell at Waco Regional Airport on May the 25th. We've never had a Memorial Day where snow has fallen in Central Texas. The summer also means it's hurricane season for North America. Summer officially kicks off on June 20th, less than a month away, but the start to the Atlantic hurricane season is even closer and starts in about a week on June 1st, which is next Saturday. And the National Hurricane Center is predicting a hyperactive season. This past Thursday, the National Hurricane Center released what it calls the most active preseason forecast in the agency's history. It's been forecasting between 17 and 25 storms that could become hurricanes, and 4 to 7 that could strengthen into Category 3 or stronger. The forecast comes as a vast area of the southern U.S. has been drenched by the flooding storms in recent weeks.
NOAA is predicting an above-average 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. Specifically, there's an 85% chance of an above-normal season, a 10% chance of a near-normal season, and a 5% chance of a below-normal season.
Coming up on next week's episode of Weather Extra, First Alert meteorologist Sean Bellafiore will take a deeper dive into NOAA's Atlantic hurricane season forecast. But straight ahead on Weather Extra is this week's Degrees of Science. Brady Taylor spoke with the principal investigator of NASA's Tropics mission. This new mission's goal is to allow meteorologists to see changes in hurricanes faster. Their conversation is coming up next.
So, Dr. Blackwell, I love all the acronyms that NASA comes up with. What does Tropics stand for?
Yeah, that's a long one. It's a time-resolved observation of precipitation structure and storm intensity with a constellation of small sets.
So how much time did it take y'all to come up with one that fit a kind of a weathered sound?
It was hard. We did spend quite a bit of time trying to capture all the things that the mission does. There's quite a bit of new innovation here, and tie it to the acronym actually, ties back to the weather we're trying to study.
So what is the ultimate goal of the Tropics mission?
What we don't get today with our state-of-the-art weather satellites flying microwave sensors is revisit rate. So we have only a very small handful of these giant satellites that orbit in polar orbits. Every 12 hours, they revisit a point on the ground. We have a few of these satellites. We have to wait on the order of 4 to 6 hours before the next satellite flies over and images a storm. So with Tropics, we wanted to reduce the complexity and the cost of the sensors, make them smaller, easier to build and launch more of them. So we have a constellation of 4 satellites, and these make much more frequent revisits of the storm. So now we're getting storm observations on the order of 1 hour with a median revisit. So it's a much faster revisit. So with Tropics, we're looking at the storm environment, the temperature and the amount of moisture in the air surrounding the storm. And we want to see how that changes as the storm spins up and intensifies. And we want to measure the precipitation and the rain bands of the storm, looking at the structure, the asymmetries, the eye wall structure, and to capture all those things with very high revisit rates.
When most people think of satellites, they're thinking these huge things up in space. Y'all's constellation, they're all pretty small, right?
They are. They're about the size of a loaf of bread. The traditional satellites are about the size of a school bus. So our satellites are about 10 pounds. And the actual instrument in the satellite is about the size of your coffee cup. So we've miniaturized what we call the radiometer. That's the instrument that makes the measurement, and enabled it to fly on a very small satellite. And that drives down the cost of launching them.
To hear more about NASA's Tropics mission, scan the QR code on your screen to watch on YouTube or go to KWTX.com/degrees of science to watch on our website. Well, that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Weather Extra. We'll see you right back here next weekend for another half hour of nothing but weather and science. Have a great Memorial Day and an awesome week.